All right, let's just jump right in, shall we? We are heading straight into what is, without a doubt, one of the most mysterious, most debated books of the Bible, the Book of Revelation. And we're going to zoom in on one very specific, very strange vision right at the beginning of chapter 11, which, as you'll see, acts almost like a blueprint for a massive historical event.
And it all kicks off with this question that, honestly, seems to make no sense at all. Right before the final catastrophic destruction of the great temple in Jerusalem, the prophet John is given this truly bizarre command: go measure it. Now, think about that. Why in the world would you bother taking the dimensions of a building that is literally on the verge of being completely erased from existence? Well, that's the mystery we're cracking open today.
So this is the exact command that gets the whole thing started. And notice how incredibly specific it is. He's told measure the temple, measure the altar, and measure the worshipers themselves. But, and this is so important, the outer court, leave it out. Don't even touch it, because as the text says, it has a totally different fate.
Okay, so our first job is to really unpack this strange command. John's in the middle of this vision, and he's handed a measuring reed with these very, very particular instructions. It's an action that on the surface feels completely illogical, especially when you know what's about to happen in history.
You see, it's a simple action, right? But here's the thing about the book of Revelation. Nothing is ever just a simple action. Every little detail is a clue. This act of measuring, it's not about architecture. It's not about drawing up construction plans. It's about something much, much deeper. So what is it?
Well, to understand the vision, we have to unlock that symbol. We've got to figure out what measuring actually means in this kind of prophetic language. Because once we get that key, the whole passage just opens right up.
And here it is. This is the key. Measuring, in this context, is a symbolic act. It's about claiming ownership. It's God essentially laying title to something, setting it apart, and marking it for divine preservation. So it's got nothing to do with square footage. It's a spiritual claim of protection right in the middle of a coming disaster.
And we're not just pulling this out of thin air. Listen to what the scholar Faber had to say about it. He connects measuring directly to the idea of sealing, which is another symbol you see all over Revelation. It's all about identifying and protecting the faithful, the people, not the physical stones of the building. Okay, so this brings us to the next critical detail. The command wasn't to measure the entire temple complex. No, it was very specific, and it created this sharp, clear division between one part and another. And believe me, this division is everything.
And this chart just lays it out perfectly. It really is a tale of two different fates. On one side, you have the part that gets measured, the inner temple, the altar, the true worshipers. This is the group being spiritually saved or sealed. But on the other side, you've got the unmeasured part, the outer court, the area of commerce, the place given over to the Gentiles. It's marked not for preservation, but for judgment.
So let's focus on that unmeasured outer court for a second. This was the busy, commercial part of the temple. But here's the kicker. Historical sources tell us that in the years right before the temple was destroyed, this whole area was taken over by radical zealots who turned it into a fortress. It had become a place of fighting and corruption. And so, symbolically, it was left unmeasured, literally given over to be trampled and judged.
Okay, so we've decoded the action. Measuring means preservation. We've decoded the space, the split between the saved and the judged. Now it's time for the final piece of the puzzle, the timing. The prophecy gives us a very, very specific countdown.
42 months. This number is not random. In biblical prophecy, when you see a number this specific, it's like a giant flashing neon sign. It is a massive clue, a key that unlocks a very particular period of time.
And that time frame is 3.5 years. This 42-month period is a well-known prophetic duration that usually represents a set time of intense trial and judgment. So the vision is basically saying a period of destruction is coming, and it's going to last for precisely this long. The big question, of course, is, does this symbolic number actually connect to any real-world event?
Oh, you bet it does. It aligns perfectly. The Jewish-Roman War, the conflict that led directly to the destruction of Jerusalem and its temple. It started in late 66 AD and wrapped up in 70 AD. That period of intense trampling of the holy city by the Gentile armies of Rome lasted almost exactly 3.5 years. The prophetic clock and the historical one are in perfect sync.
So, here's the crucial point. When we put all these pieces together, this strange vision isn't a mystery anymore, is it? It becomes this clear, step-by-step prophetic blueprint that seems to foretell a very specific and very devastating historical event.
Let's just trace that blueprint one last time.
You get the command, measure the temple. The meaning? To claim and preserve the faithful. Then comes the division, which separates those who would be spiritually saved from the corrupt system that was destined for judgment. And finally, the timing, the 42-month clock that pinpointed the exact duration of the war that brought it all down.
And this, right here, is the ultimate takeaway. The reason you would measure a building that's about to be destroyed is because you're not actually interested in the building at all. The prophecy was never about stones and mortar. It was a message about people, a declaration of who God would protect spiritually, even as the physical world around them was literally going up in flames.
And that leaves us with a pretty fascinating final thought to chew on. This way of reading it frames prophecy not just as a prediction of the distant future, but as a kind of blueprint that maps directly onto recorded history. And if that's the case, it really challenges us to look at the past in a whole new light, not just as a series of random events, but maybe as the unfolding of a story that was written long before it ever happened.